Ladies and gentlemen, this is the question and answer session. We are on the panel here. I'm Captain Anand, the President, George Noble to my left, Captain Alan Brinks, Peter Morgan, and Paul Homer. Okay. Please go ahead. The floor is open.
Satish, I wanted to ask something, if I may.
Please go ahead.
It was on MLC 2006. I was in Australia last year, and one of the seminars I attended was a branch meeting in Melbourne for the Nautical Institute, where we invited along an AMSA official, and he explained about some of the things that they considered would be difficult things for them to accept on board ships. And I just wondered if the panel had any views about how the surveyors saw MLC and how difficult it would be to try to enforce some of those things.
Yeah, okay. Anybody wants to answer that?
Well, I'll have a crack at it. I'm not going to talk about MLC as such because I haven't the faintest idea what it says, being a dinosaur. But going back to surveyors and surveyor safety, we've heard some great stuff about entry into enclosed spaces and so on. It's up to the individual surveyor to make sure that he or she does not enter a space unless it is safe. What we've just heard about is really essential backup, if you like. In the Salvage Association, I'm going back 10, 12 years, we provided each surveyor with an oxygen monitor. And if the oxygen got below survivability level, a big loud whistle came on. And every surveyor was handed one. It was rather, we bought the cheap version, typical, which once it went off, you couldn't switch it off. One guy went, I won't say which airline it was and where it was to or from, but unfortunately it was in his hand baggage, and it went off on the aircraft because the oxygen level on the aircraft was below survivability. And the airline were a bit cheesed off about this, and we eventually had to provide surveyors with a rather more expensive version that you could actually switch off. But the point I'm really trying to make is that you as surveyors and me as a surveyor in the past have had to go into dodgy spaces where you don't really know what's going on. And I suggest it's your responsibility as an individual to look after your own life.
Yeah, that's very important. There have been cases where the ship staff does not accompany, the senior ship staff does not accompany the surveyors. There's many times when you find that you are accompanied by only a seaman or maybe a cadet. I had a case where quite a few years back when a brand new cadet accompanied me. So I asked him, I said, how long have you been on board? He said, I've been on board for 4 days. I asked him, I said, how do you know your ship? He said, no. I said, okay. I had to teach him about his ship. But there are calculated risks that surveyors have to take, but I don't think we should go beyond that. So it's very important that we are accompanied, the surveyors are accompanied by a senior member of the ship, and he should know the ship.
Do you feel qualified to make that decision about calculating risk, given that you're not necessarily...
See, calculated risk is something which you take every day in life, okay? Knowing that you are sure that you will be able to handle it, that is what a calculated risk is. It's not foolhardiness or just assuming that you will be safe. There is no assumption. There is no assumption. Once you're down and you're out, there's no way coming back. So one has to be very careful there.
What about Peter's point before about challenging? Do you feel
I did. Sorry. Yes, I did challenge, in fact, and it did bring out a rethink of my mentality and the way I approach things. And one of the things is I'm notorious for poor record keeping, shall we say. But I've changed my total attitude to risk assessments and start looking around, just purely visual, looking around you, what's available, how it's going about it, how I intend doing my work, and is my equipment, and double and treble checking that my equipment works before I enter tank and confined space. Said I've been involved in fatalities, and we had to rescue a colleague contractor at the time who was overcome by paint fumes. They were a painting gang, and quite a simple thing. All he was moving, he had breathing apparatus and everything else, went from one compartment in the other of the ship, and his airline got snagged and broke. And although we had ventilation and all the other things available, within 50 minutes he was dead. And having to bring him up out the tank, which was difficult anyway, and this is pre your lifting gear and all the other good things that have been developed since, it's heartbreaking. And having to go to break the news to the senior management and then onwards to the family, because he was a local guy, not particularly pleasant. And it comes home to you very, very hard that we should check, double check, and treble check. It can happen so quickly, you know, and I can't urge that enough. And in fact, the work being done by Mines Rescue, I think, is admirable, and we should support it 120%. I think it's necessary, absolutely necessary, and I think we should be talking further with these guys. And just an aside, I do think the word mines is, for the marine, is perhaps a misnomer, and a marine rescue might be more appropriate. But I know where you're coming from, because I come from South Wales and a mining family background. Okay.
Yeah, Alan Brink, just to continue with the enclosed space aspect, I think all of us that are sort of big ship surveyors and do P&I club surveys know that there is a system in place on board the ship. In the safety management system, you have to have enclosed space entry systems and permits and checks. So there is some system in place on board. When I've done P&I condition surveys, there's a question asked by the club whether the work permit system and the enclosed space entry system is being adhered to or is being followed. The easy way to check that is ask to go and see one of the tanks, go inside, and you follow how they prepare themselves and what documentation they put in place. And of course, if they don't, you don't enter the tank, and of course they get a deficiency. So the P&I clubs do have a system in place. The management system, ISM, has a system in place. But I think what Captain Lloyd was saying today, the master is responsible, he's the person on board, and he should ensure that those systems are adhered to and followed. Thanks.
I have a point. Every time I have gone on board a vessel, and with regard to the enclosed space matter, I am strongly of the opinion that each vessel should have a video of its own which is pertaining to that particular vessel. Whatever we have is all generic and general information, which is mandatory for every seaman. But every vessel must carry on board a video of every space on that ship and what are the facilities on board pertaining to that vessel. If this can become a regulation or a suggestion in the days to come, I think it will go a long way in preventing some of the accidents.
Identify yourself.
Okay. I am Uday Murthy, Quest Marine, Dubai.
Anybody else wants to add in or questions on the subject or any other subject?
Can I ask if people are using harnesses when they go down? Are they already using all the gear that Michael suggested? Or do you observe the crew observe it, using all the gear?
I am not using all the gear that they have shown, but to be honest, yes, gas meters, I do carry multiple gas meters. I do
Tambe from Troop 7. I mean, I'll be honest that we have not been carrying all the gear that was shown. But yes, we do carry portable gas meters, lights, rope, of course, I always do carry with me. But harnesses, no, that is a valuable suggestion, and I think we would incorporate as our company's standing procedure that we should have a harness when a surveyor is going down. That's it.
May I make a suggestion? It does seem that the enclosed spaces issue is, it's been going on, as I know, for more than 30 years. I started with Neville Hall at what was then the College of Nautical Studies at Warsash, after 5 people had been killed on a Pan-Ocean tanker. And we prepared a course there. Is there a feeling around the audience here that perhaps we, as the International Institute of Marine Surveying, could look into cooperating with our last speakers and perhaps coming up with some sort of training course for surveyors? Because surveyors are the forgotten victims at the end of the day. And what is your view? I see some nodding of heads. Do you think we should pursue this?
No, I don't think there's a need for it. Tank inspections are a regular part of onboard life on tankers in particular. People are trained for it. If people go into surveying from that background, they are experiencing it.
What about those who don't
have that background? But of course, what don't the Mine Rescue Service in the North West Institutes, or have they already done a lot of work on this? There's no point duplicating what's already been done, if it has been done.
I think there is a difference in when you do an inspection aboard a tanker, things are well organized, but on freight vessels there is less experience, so there's a big difference, I guess.
Yes, please.
I think we already have worked on a training course for surveyors. We've done it. And there's one that's on paper certainly available. And I mean, the problem is getting on courses, and I do know this. You know, where do you go on these courses? If you're in Bangladesh, or if you're in India, or Hong Kong, how do you get on them? What you could possibly think of doing is a short DVD for surveyors.
Yeah, I think I was about to follow up with that, because perhaps the people who are watching this question answer session on YouTube or wherever, they might want to come up with suggestions as well. I think a DVD, at least it's better than nothing.
Yeah, we need, we not, pardon?
Yeah, just to finish on that subject of distance learning courses, Michael said, the obvious thing is it's always easier to build a course when there is a sort of agreed standard. The problem that you have is that we have as providers of training to us, that very often, if there's no mandatory requirement to do something, there's a lot less, enthusiasm for doing it. But the material that we have over the 7-part course could, I would suggest, be very easily appropriated so that the bits you didn't need for a surveying audit specific were removed, and so we could kind of produce something. We'd be more than happy to have that discussion with you in conjunction with Mines as well, in creating something specifically for that audience.
Yeah, we probably have to develop something for the training, and then on the basis of that, then the drill. Because both have to be treated separately. It should not be mixed up.
Absolutely, and I think one of the things that we perhaps didn't dwell on today, but within the training sphere, is that they were very, very sensitive when we started getting into distance learning, but we mustn't say that someone is qualified if they have done this, and we're very sensitive to that. What we're about is providing that underpinning knowledge, but there's no substitute whatsoever for drills and for actually doing stuff, improving, all those kind of things that are so essential.
Just to add to the point, there are increasing number of surveyors going on board ships, and the Institute's part of the training program for that, who have not been to sea. And there's a shortage of seafarers now, and this is an area where non-former mariner surveyors, I think, will need some formal sort of training.
Yeah, Zarir, go ahead. Identify yourself, please.
Yeah, Zarir Rani, Constellation Marine, Regional Director for IIMS in the Middle East. I have a comment to make rather than a question over my earlier question to the speaker. The Harbour Master had clearly asked us whether IIMS would certify people as trained to enter enclosed space, and we stopped short of saying yes after we put a training together. This was 2 or 3 years ago. I'm convinced that every port on this world has a safety policy and have a KPI for reducing accidents. That's your starting point. Let's not talk about surveyors. They will not be entering the ports if they are not trained to do their jobs safely. So if we talk to those guys saying that we have a course which will enable you to reduce your accidents of people entering into port, please do not allow or give passes or allow them without knowing that they are trained like on board ships. You've got a hoarding of people coming in to get themselves trained, and we will have all our surveyors coming out of their tanks on both their feet rather than on stretchers. We will go back and make a point through this Harbour Master and initiate it when we go back. My question to Mr. President is, are we as IIMS ready to stick our necks in and say, you are trained now to enter safely and come out safely? If the IIMS is willing to do that, we can take it forward. If not, we're wasting our time in this room, I think.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. We have to be very sure that we got a course which is going to be 100% or 110% rather than 95%. So before we go for the courses, we have to make sure that we have got everything in place. Javier, you got a question?
Sure.
Yeah, identify yourself and then talk.
Javier Bru from Panama, country director for the IIMS. We were discussing about the entry space and the courses that you might give to surveyors. At the end, what is most important will be that you will place on your website enough information for the surveyors. Because to give courses, maybe on specific cases might work out. But other than that, I mean, for young surveyors that might not have, let's say, either the attitude or to tell a captain, I will not go into this tank. Okay, for them, that will be very useful.
Yeah, thank you.
Last question, maybe.
Go ahead. Identify yourself.
Jump from Nigeria.
You want the mic?
It's okay. I speak loud. Your voice can still be helpful. I am in favor of providing training for marine surveyors who desire to have one. But not for IIMS to stick out its neck that once the training is given, the individual can safely go into confined spaces. Why am I saying this? No matter how well and organized a training may be, if an individual on completion of that training becomes complacent in the application of what he was taught, there will be accidents. And the cost of such an accident wouldn't be that the training was inadequate, but the individual had just failed to apply the basic things he was taught. So, why would the institute or the organization that gave the training be the one to be held responsible for not providing adequate training? So, it's one thing to have a source for providing training. It's another thing for the trainee to apply what was done. So we need to find a way of them.
Very good, valid point, and it will be considered. We don't want anything coming up on the institute by way of litigations. One last question please. We are running short of time.
I just wanted to come back on that point because we had the same discussion on the whole marine side, which is why we came down on the side of the training being about awareness. Nothing more. We can't,
Not a certification.
We can't. Well, you can obtain a certificate in that, in being aware of all the, able to recognise all the spaces, being aware of the correct procedure and so on.
Yes, that is all we can do. Give a certificate of awareness, not of you've done a course and you are perfect. There's no such thing because everybody's an individual. And if you don't follow the procedures 100% and we're not there to see it, somebody's going to say you didn't and it's going to backfire.
Sure.
These guys can stay there.
Any more?
Yeah, just one last word. I think from the IIMS side, we could probably put up a set of guidelines for tank entry, but those are already in the industry. They're available in your ISM systems and from P&I clubs, etc. But you know, you can put guidelines if you're not going to run a course, and then you must follow those guidelines.
Yeah, one of the issues that we have to consider is it's not just the training of the surveyors, it's also the on-board situation. So many times we have come across people, surveyors going and saying that the master or any of the officers does not understand English, does not understand us at all. So we don't know how far to go. Those situations are also quite serious when it comes to safety of the surveyors. Okay, we will now. Yeah, just 1 minute.
I believe the Tanker Cooperative Forum have issued a set of, or have quite a while ago, issued a set of guidelines or code of practice for confined entry. And it's a useful document for those who really need to refresh and have a look at it. It's not over complicated. It's actually a good aide de memoire, and we used to have it on our website as a link to it for people to reproduce. I don't know what the comment of the mines people is to that document. Is it positive or negative?
I think one thing I would say is we see a lot of these documents issued by P&I clubs and various others, even IMO, and this is not being egotistical about it, but we do wish that sometimes these people would phone us and ask our advice, because I suppose no other organisation has put in so much effort in the world into those spaces on board ships and marine. Now, if they would phone us, well, perhaps what we do need is a general one for the industry where everybody can follow, instead of each organisation putting out their own advice, which is good in many cases, but often missing things out.
Well, I think this is something where the Nautical Institute can work with IIMS on this, because our members encompass people on vessels, ashore, and surveyors, EPAs, people like that. There's a lot of experience to there. Michael, you're a fellow, you're a big supporter of ours.
Yep.
And I do say that we're not going to let this matter drop. And we will produce something. I think there's a difference. Yes, train, yes, drills, but there's best practice as well. And you can't always legislate for everything. And there's more than one way to do it. Let's perhaps put out something short and sweet. Let's perhaps carry on with all these higher profile efforts. But, you know, there's all sorts of ways, and let's talk. Mike and I have already had a chat about this. We're not going to let it lie. We're going to take things forward. So, yeah, very positive. And we'll work with you. For sure.
Thank you all. Yeah, it's something we have learned today, especially with reference to the entry into enclosed spaces, and I hope we'll carry that forward. No more questions now? Okay, we have to... Mike, do you have to say anything before I close the session?
Stay there. Is this working? Can you hear me okay? Yeah. Yeah, no?
Yes.
Yes? Stay where you are. Right, at this point, we were going to link directly live into Seawork. And guess what? I told you yesterday, never work with children, animals, and live internet links.
Yeah.
They can't get a strong enough signal down in the docks to do that interview with us. Okay, modern technology. But a couple of things I just want to say on Seawork, and then I'm going to hand over to Bridget to have the last word and to close the conference. Satish was quite keen that anybody who wants to go to Seawork tomorrow from this location gathers at 9 o'clock in the morning and shares a taxi down, or taxis, depending on how many there are.
We get about 9:30.
9:30, okay. So if you want to go down as a group, those of you who are going from here tomorrow, meet in the foyer at 9:30 and you can go down as a group. That was Satish's suggestion, which I support.
Thank you.
They have emailed me a bit of information since we realised that we couldn't do the live link. I can, if nothing else, give you tomorrow's demonstrations at Seawork, so let me do that. At 11 o'clock, you can have, fuel purifier to remove water and solids from diesel without filters. Demo pours water into a small tank of diesel by switching on a pump. The water and diesel is sucked into the purifier. Clean diesel exits and water drains from the bottom. So that's at 11 o'clock. 12:30 tomorrow down on the pontoons. They are demonstrating the fibre-light recovery cradle from the Delta Power vessel. Using a hook in the cradle, an MOB will be recovered from the water. 1:30 on the pontoons, a K-38 rescue will demonstrate rescue techniques using a Pro WC rescue wave runner. My laptop's closed down on me. There we are. At 3 o'clock tomorrow, marina safety awareness training, which leverages the benefits of game-based simulation training. And the last live demo tomorrow at 4 o'clock is a demonstration by a cruise saver technician on the rearming of life jackets. Also tomorrow afternoon at Seawork, I am chairing the Small Craft Forum, which actually, our good friends will actually, he's coming on his own tomorrow. Adam is coming tomorrow to give his presentation again to that audience. That's free. We have some other things going on either side. Mark Towell is giving the MCA presentation on the new workbook code, which is pretty much the first outing for that. So you don't have to come in for all afternoon. If you want to come in and pick up that bit of information, that starts at 1:30. Adam's on, I think, at 2 something. And we've then got a Q&A session later in the day. So that's happening. And that's in the Mayflower Terminal, which is the conference area they use just adjacent. So that's all I have to say on Seawork. Finally, I have, just before I hand over, one pleasant duty to perform. Bridget, you've been amazing the last day and a half. It's only very fitting that I give you a little gift from us, and thank you very much indeed for chairing the conference. So without further ado, Bridget, if you'd like to close the conference, please.
Well, thank you very much. And it's a bit of a sad duty, really, at this stage always. Thank you, Satish. Bit of a sad duty to be closing, because it's been a very fruitful gathering, I think. I know that the response has been very lively and passionate during the technical presentations, but I would say to you, don't lose sight of some of the softer things. The world out there is getting more sophisticated, so do listen to the lessons you can learn about the new website and the LinkedIn groups and other presentations that you've had both here and in the workshops. I think it's been very good. The workshops have been very well populated, as well as the main events. Congratulations to your organising committees for putting together such a good programme. Well done with all your support. Always bring your ideas, and I hope you'll support the AGM this afternoon and be there in strength as well. I want to say again, thanks to the sponsors, to Henderson International Asia Pacific Group, to Constellation Marine Services. This really wouldn't happen without their fantastic platinum support, and of course Cygnus, Matrix and Cordstrap. I also want to thank you for the opportunity to be your chair again. I always learn something, but most of all, I like working with you guys. You know, you've got lots of ideas, you've got lots of experience, and I know you are the absolute tip of the iceberg, that you are the ones who care, who want, that'll do just does not do for you. You want to improve yourselves, and you will have an effect on the world by that. So keep it up. All strength to IIMS. Nautical Institute is here to support you in any way we can. Let's work together. And thank you for the opportunity and for the presents.
How wonderful.